Hello and welcome to yet another video, and in this video I would like to talk about this lens right here that's mounted on this camera. It's the 35mm f1.6 from MCOPLUS company. It's a Chinese company, and this lens is actually a fully manually focused lens, and well, that means that there's no any sort of electronics inside here. And being a manual focused lens first, this means that the smooth the focusing ring here is really smooth, as well as the aperture ring. And the aperture ring is actually like a clickless or stepless ring, which is good when it comes to filmmaking. And they actually make this not only for Micro Four Thirds system, but also for other mirrorless systems such as the USM, the Sony system, and for the full sheet of specs of for which platform they also make the mount for, please head on over to their website, which will be linked down in the description below. But for this one here, I got it for Micro Four Thirds, and this means that 35mm becomes an equivalent of a 70mm f1.6. So despite the fact that this camera has a smaller sensor, Micro Four Thirds, and obviously as we know that Micro Four Thirds produces not as much of the bokeh as the full frame sensor does, or even the APS-C size sensor, but having it at 70mm means that the compression is going to be a lot tighter than, let's say, if you were to mount it on an APS-C size sensor. And this actually gives this 1.6 aperture 1.6 also a really nice buttery smooth bokeh as well. Of course, you're not going to be comparing it to I don't know, an 85 1.2 from Canon. That is a totally different type of beast and monster. But yeah. Anyway, so I have a chance to play with this lens for the past 2.5 weeks, at least according to the time of this recording. And for a manual focus lens like this, it's definitely more than enough time to look at the image quality and everything. And for the most part, I'm actually quite fine with the image quality, because it's sharp, but obviously it's not the sharpest images I've seen. But we have to keep in mind that this is a $90 lens, and the build quality is actually out of metal, both the mount and the actual barrel here. So the build quality alone already eats up quite a bit. But you'll know that if you drop it, you're not going to break it very easily. And this, as I mentioned earlier, the focus ring is really smooth, but it's also really long. But this is also really nice for manually focusing in video, as precise as you want. But sometimes if you're hand holding and trying to manual focus, you'll find that your hand might get in a way when you try to, rotate the focusing ring quite a bit, because obviously it's a long distance. But you can see it both as a good thing and as a bad thing. But where I wish they would have expanded more would be on the actual aperture ring here, because it starts from f1.6, which is normal, to f2, 2.8, f4, f8, but then f8 and it just jumps all the way to f22. So for me that was a little bit weird, because I used if I'm shooting landscape, I use higher than f8 for sure. It's my habit from full frame, but yeah. But anyway, back to the actual image and video quality. The image and video quality of this thing, actually it produces really nice sharp enough images, and also it produces really nice video. The contrast is not as deep as some of the more professional lenses, but with a bit of color grading, I think you will definitely nailed it. And this lens works really nicely, also both in low light and in normal daylight. Of course, it's f1.6, so it should work fine in low light. That being said, though, it also depends on which camera you mount on, because not the low light or anything, but the actual focus peaking or any sort of manually focus assistant from the camera. Because what I find with cameras from Panasonic, they are not really good at, or not good, but they're not really accurate in terms of giving you the focus peaking or showing lines of areas where it's actually focused. so that can be a little bit tricky. But if you mount it on like the EOS M system where their focus peaking is actually quite accurate, then you'll definitely get good results within shorter amount of time, because you know you're not going to be like taking action with this lens because you're going to be rotating the ring for quite a long distance. And yeah, the focusing distance, the closest focusing distance that this lens can go is 30 centimeters, which I think it's already pretty good. And for the actual size, it's actually a really compact size, so you can definitely take it anywhere, regardless of mirrorless system that you have. And yeah, the actual filter thread, it's 49mm filter thread, so it's also a really common filter thread, especially if you're using mirrorless system or like smaller APS-C DSLRs. This filter thread should be very common, or one of the common filter threads. And yeah, so obviously don't take this lens like to rain, even though there's no electronics in there, but it's also not weatherproof, which means like still sand, dust, moisture could get inside, which could form fungi at some point. So don't take it into like extreme weather. And yeah, otherwise I would really highly recommend this lens. Yeah, so in short, it produces sharp enough images and video quality, and yeah, it's a really nice lens to use. And yeah, if you're looking for like a lens that allows this amount of light, like aperture f1.6 into the camera, and you don't mind manually focusing your lens, and yeah, I just recommend this lens because there are very little options out there with this focal length, whether it's for micro four thirds or for APS-C size sensors, with this price for a brand new lens. And the build quality of this thing is again very good compared to like other cheap plastic made lenses. And yeah, that's it for this little review. Thank you very much for watching, and have a nice day. Have fun shooting. Bye.